Couple things on barbell front squat, I feel like what I see is it doesn't work for everyone. So a lot of people have, like, they won't have the posture for it. Meaning if they're like very like forward rounded, they won't be able to set the bar on that. So sometimes we'll do like a trial and error on it. Like maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And if it does, we just switch it right in that moment. Another thing, I'm just trying to think, like give you guys some things that I see with the front squat. Did you guys go over depth on it yet? Just see what you guys got.
No, we just went to the box.
Just to the box.
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, you're on back squat. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's just talk about like depth with it, right? So always start them higher, right? Before we go up in weight, traditionally, right, we want to try to get them as low as their body will let us. Watching for like a butt wink, right? So if their pelvis starts to really like tilt underneath, we don't want that, right? So I would start them, let's say someone they're looking good, they don't have tight ankles like me or tight hips like me, so they can probably go a little lower. Then I'd go 14 inches, right? Then I'd go 12 inches. And then you will get to a point where then, okay, I can get rid of the box. If they're keeping that consistent depth, I just get rid of the box right away. Always start them higher though. So let's go back squat. When you're teaching the back squat, I would make sure that you're getting them set up with the bar in that meaty part of their upper back, right? So I'm gonna just kind of teach you how I would teach you if you're a brand new client with me, right? So, all right, so Kyria, we're gonna get underneath that bar, right? I like to use these as my markers for my hands, okay? Now we may figure out that we have tighter shoulders, which I actually had a client yesterday where I had to switch her up on her hands, which I wouldn't normally do, but she was so tight here, I had to have her go wider. You don't want that, right? But sometimes you gotta kind of play around with it. So I'm gonna use these as my markers, right? And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get underneath the bar. I'm gonna show you that meaty part of the upper back where I want it, okay? So we're gonna get underneath, meaty part. Now, what I want you to think about is we're gonna try to break that bar in half, right? I'm standing up. I'm gonna really brace like you're gonna punch me in the stomach. I'm gonna find my box behind me. I'm braced, I'm tucked with my ribs, breaking my bar in half. I'm gonna look straight ahead of me. We're gonna squat, drive through that floor, squeezing that butt, right? When we're ready to rack it, I just want you to slam that bar right back in before you release it. So those are like big cues that I try to use is breaking that bar in half. Do you guys ever back squat? Your back squat? Yeah, and maybe you see like at a commercial gym when people back squat, a lot of times they'll have their elbows like really flared. You're not using your whole body to your advantage, right? So break it in half, make sure you're feeling their lats working, their core working the whole time. Yeah, really, really emphasizing the core, right? Because that's kind of what we always think about when we're squatting from the very top before we go to adding load and adding the bar. Yeah, so we're going back squat to the box. Same thing with depth, right? So starting them higher, and then we're gonna start to lower them a little bit. What if you're watching someone back squat and you see them start to tip forward, right? What do you think, like, what would you try to cue them? I say that because that's a big, like, mistake or something that I always see is they'll have the bar, right? They'll set up really good here, but then what I'll start to see them do is go this, right? So what's a couple things that you would probably like try to get them to think about?
Emphasize breaking the bar in half, really pulling down those elbows.
Yeah, good.
Keeping that chest up and pulling down.
Yeah.
Tight core.
Yes, I would really probably emphasize a lot of tight core, and then I would pay attention to like their hips and their ankles. Like maybe they have some tightness going on there that is impeding them a little bit. But yeah, really, really emphasizing lats and core on that one. Let's keep the barbell squat. I know I'm kind of like jumping from, so we go box, we got depth, tempo, right? So I think I heard you guys talk about tempo with chest press yesterday.
We talk about tempo with most of them.
Yeah, so tempo is same. The tempo, we use like slow tempo a lot in semi fours. So like a 3-1-3, right? So what would that be for tempo?
3 down, 1 at the bottom, 3 on.
Yeah, exactly. That's always going to be super hard for a lot of clients, especially they're going to want to just speed up really fast. What I see when someone goes into that tempo is they start to go, they go down really fast, and then when they pause at the bottom, they lose everything. So they're not doing a good job of keeping the tension and keeping that engagement the whole time. Zombie squat to depth. How did you guys feel about zombie squat? Good, right? Yeah. So same thing, right? Once you have them there, right? I'm in my zombie squat. Then as they get comfortable with that 16 inches, right? We can start to just lower a little bit more. Just making sure that those hands don't drop, right? Tempo squats without barbell. So we can definitely progress them with the tempo without any weight, or we can go tempo. We do a lot of pulses at the bottom. So let's say I want you to do goblet squat with a pulse, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have you hold a dumbbell here, right? We're gonna really brace, everything's nice and tight. I'm gonna come down, we're gonna get a pulse, drive up, squeeze that butt, right? So that's another different variation of like a tempo. Okay, let's talk about, I don't think you guys talked about kettlebell racked squats or anything like that. So I'm gonna grab a kettlebell. Okay, so the biggest thing, we do a lot of kettlebell racked front squats for like semi-fours, or a lot of clients that we can get them comfortable with the kettlebell. A lot of people don't like the kettlebell because of the hold, right? So when I do a kettlebell racked squat, I wanna make sure that my client is not breaking their wrist, right? So that's like the biggest thing that we see is people wanna hold their kettlebell by breaking their wrist. So I wanna think really stiff wrist the whole time. Okay, I'm gonna use my lat to hold that kettlebell, and I'm keeping it close to my body. So I'm gonna engage my lat, brace my core, keeping it close to my body. I like to use my other arm out, kind of by the side, and then we're gonna squat, drive up, squeeze the butt. So you're still always cueing them about that tripod, the core, right? It's just when you start to hold different pieces of equipment, that's when things are gonna get a little bit different. Dumbbell front squat. So very similar with position of like with a bar, right? But now I can cue them, we're gonna just put it slightly on those shoulders, right? I'm not letting the elbows drop, right? Still keeping them up, tightening my core. I'm just not as high as I would be with the barbell, right? So I'm gonna, again, engage the core, keeping my dumbbells up high. We're gonna squat down, drive up, squeeze that butt. Do you guys have a favorite squat? Or maybe squat's not your favorite?
I like goblet squat.
You like goblet squat? Do you have a favorite squat?
I have a barbell, I like back squats.
You like back squat? Yeah. Yeah. I always jump around between back and front squat. I was really into like front squats for a while, and then you almost get like, okay, I've done so many of these, like, so then back. Have you ever tried a barbell box squat? Is that on here, by the way? Okay, let's talk about those. Oh, that's not on here.
We've got back squat to the box.
No, yeah,
The one
box
where you
squat.
Sit on the box for
Yeah, let's go over those because we do those. So it would say, let's add just a little, let's add it like on line 7 next to that one, box barbell back squat. So we can only really do this with clients that understand tension and can keep that tension, right? Because as soon as I see their spine just collapse, no more. So I actually had a client doing this yesterday, and what I had her do is she likes high reps, right? So she wanted to get 12 every time, which is fine, but once you start to get really lazy and fatigue in that core, you're gonna start to lose your form, and that's what she was doing. So she would go to like 9, she was great, and then she was getting tired, and I was like, re-rack it, right? Let's find that setup again, and then you can go back into it. So you're still thinking same setup as a back squat, right? But what I want you to do now, so Brett, if I was gonna coach you this, so we're gonna do back squat, but now we're gonna keep that tension, just like we would for a back squat, we're gonna sit. But I don't want you to sit and collapse or relax, right? So same setup, I'm gonna use this as my marker. We're gonna get underneath that bar, okay? I'm gonna break my bar in half using my core. We're gonna lift up. I'm gonna find that box behind me with my feet, right? So I'm gonna create tension with my core really tight. It's like I'm wearing a corset, right? So I'm gonna pull my corset tight. From here, I'm gonna sit down. I'm not relaxing my core, and I'm gonna drive straight up. So notice how I didn't rock back, right? So a lot of times you'll see people, they'll rock back. That's them relaxing, right? So if I had a lot of load on my spine and I just rocked back, I'm gonna hurt myself, okay? Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite squats actually, barbell box squat. Any questions on that one? Pretty good, right? Like, biggest thing you're looking at is their spine. Are they rocking back? Are they using momentum, right? It's a lot of work in the butt on that one. What else? I think we went over everything. Oh no, varying foot width. So we can go narrow, right? Normal foot width, wide. We can even go into like a little bit of a sumo stance. What else? Maybe a little staggered, right? So I could be posteriorly staggered, right? So my load's on my, on my back leg. I can be front staggered, right? What else could I do? You'll typically see we do like to do like narrow, medium, wide. Now that narrow, medium, wide will depend on the person, right? Again, I said I have tight ankles, tight hips. I cannot squat narrow, right? I mean, this is good, as good as we get. So I definitely need heel elevation if I want to squat narrow. But you'll see, like, if we want to get someone to squat narrow, elevate their heels, right? If I elevate my heels, I can definitely get down a little bit lower. Same thing with like my narrow or my medium. Yeah, any questions on those? Feel good about the barbell work setup. Setting up with the J-hooks. We feel comfortable with that, like depending on the height of the person.
For the squat, are you looking, so more like chest area? Is that where?
So here, come over here, because you're a little shorter than me. So for you, I always go a little lower than their height, right? So this is a little lower than my shoulder height. So if I'm looking at you, I would probably have you one down, just one down. Now, I'm not good about setting these up. I always make the mistake and I have to reset them up. So let's see if I would get your height right. So if I'm looking at you, I'm like, all right. Come a little closer. Yep, so that's probably a little too high, actually. Always go a little lower, right? Because you're gonna feel more comfortable getting set up a little bit lower than higher because you don't want to have them on their tippy toes. And I've made a mistake of, I'll set you up here and then I go in to show you and have you get underneath the bar. And I'm like, oh, this is too high. I'm like, I'm sorry, Kyria, let me fix this for you. Or I'm like, hey, after your first one, I'm gonna fix these while you're doing your squat so that it's a little bit lower when you set up, right? So I admit to my mistake, I fix it while they're in it, and they're okay. It's just when the weight gets like really heavy and stuff, you definitely wanna be careful with that. Yeah, I feel like we're good on this one. Let me just check. You feel comfortable with like making someone feel comfortable with a squat? A lot of people, like especially new clients, if they've never trained before, squatting to them is super scary, right? A lot of people definitely like, this is a small surface, right? If someone is overweight, they do not like to squat to this. And I say that because I had that happen to me where I had a lady, very overweight. She could squat to this and she could have been fine, right? She wasn't comfortable. So she was very hesitant. Even if I had her hold me or hold the rack, she didn't like it. So I grabbed the bench. She was definitely more comfortable with the bench. Or you can grab the big box. The only thing with the big boxes is to make it like 8 or 16 inches or lower, you'd have to like configure it a little bit. So I would start with the bench and then kind of go with there. What's up?
It's like a lot of stuff you gotta move to do those.
Yeah, we do use the 18-inch boxes a lot. I mean, I think you guys saw me I used 18-inch box with Ian. I ended up using the 12-inch with Bob, but I normally would have like probably used this, but we definitely use those a lot. But that's just definitely something I see as far as like comfortability goes. Tripod of the foot, try to get them barefoot, right? Barefoot's always gonna be a little bit better. Not everyone is gonna wanna go barefoot, but if you can explain why you really like barefoot, have you guys ever trained barefoot? Yeah, so, I mean, if I work out at a commercial gym, I don't go barefoot. If I work out here, of course I'm barefoot, but yeah, I mean, I don't think they even let you go barefoot at a commercial gym. I know mine, where I work out at, they're like, you have to have your shoes on, because I think I tried it and they yelled at me.